Now, before you get into it, let me know. Are we gonna have our casual conversation, or are you gonna be like?
Baby, why are you gonna? I just hit record.
You're not sitting down yet. You gotta do your intro.
I'm sitting down right now. It's gonna be a casual conversation, baby. Before we start, now I gotta cut off. No, I'm gonna leave all this in here. This how she do. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ron's Library and Ideas. This is a very special episode of Ron's Library and Ideas. I'm Ron, and sitting next to me is the beautiful, the talented, the love of my life, my fiance, my future wife, the future mother of my children, Miss Ali Steed. Hello, how are you today, Ali?
I am doing so well. Thank you for having me today.
No, thank you for coming on. Because actually it's important to have a female perspective on this, because today we're going to be discussing The Coldest Winter Ever and the sequel to that book, Life After Death. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about these two books today is because the sequel wasn't well received by a lot of people, and I couldn't understand why. I thought Sister Soldier did an excellent job of telling this new story. The lessons that she was trying to impact in the book or show through Winter's story, it landed for me. But for a lot of people, they say they couldn't even get past the first few pages. They were turned off. And I think some of that has to do with people not understanding that The Coldest Winter Ever is really a cautionary tale. And I don't think women like to think about that actions have consequences. What say you, darling?
Well, my initial question to you, the two stories, which one did you enjoy more? I know we're in the process of rereading Life After Death, but so, you've read it before. Which one did you enjoy most?
That's hard for me to say. I would say I enjoyed The Coldest Winter Ever, the first one, a little bit more than the sequel. But I enjoy, because it's just a regular story. It's easier to understand. But I appreciate Life After Death because from my studies, I know that your journey after you die, like the things that happen to you, it varies from person to person. So my afterlife experience and Ali's afterlife experience, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be based on what lessons or what final lessons do I need to learn so my soul can move on to a higher place. Now for Winter, she was locked up for 15 years. She didn't advance from book 1 to book 2. She was doing the same exact things. So her afterlife story was a reflection of that.
I think it's important for us to, we can go deep with the books, but at the surface level, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves that question: which story did I enjoy most?
Okay.
Because we're getting ready to review the book.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people can agree The Coldest Winter Ever, the storyline just hit a little bit harder than Life After Death. It starts out slow. You're confused as to what's going on. And like you said, you appreciated Life After Death more because of your studies.
Yeah,
now
what was going on.
Exactly. Now for the average person who is not in their studies,
it's going over their head.
Yeah, this is going to fall flat for them. And I think that's important for us to know.
So that makes me appreciate Sister Soldier more as an author, because she knew she was taking the risk. Like, she's written other books that don't deal with this same subject matter. It's purely based in the physical. For Life After Death, 95% of the story is taking place in the afterlife. Spoiler alert. So she had to have known, okay, this is not going to be as well received as the first one, but there's something that I want to teach people through this telling. And she stuck with it. She told that story.
Something that I noticed just from Sister Soldier as a writer, I was paying attention to, for those who don't know, Ron and I, we both within the last few days just reread The Coldest Winter Ever. I listened to the audiobook, and then we're doing the same thing with Life After Death. And because we read these two so close together, I was able to pay attention to the character development. And what I noticed is that Winter did not have very much character development. She still had the same voice, she still had the same mindset. But who developed within those 15 to 20 years was Sister Soldier.
Yeah.
And so her message is a lot more developed. It's deeper.
She's still learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great skill to point out.
And you know that is interesting, and
Yeah.
I think it's a reflection of life, because she talks about it in Life After Death, like, or even at the end of The Coldest Winter Ever, when she goes to her mother's funeral. You know, everybody's asking her, pay attention to what's going on. What are people wearing? What are people doing? When you go to prison, you're cut off from the rest of the world. It's like time sort of doesn't stand still for you, but you're in your own isolated bubble. Like your world is within those walls. So life is moving one direction outside, and it's moving in a completely different direction inside. It trickles in a lot slower. The Shawshank Redemption, one of my favorite movies, but there's a character, he said, when I first went to prison, you saw a car every once in a while, but when I got out, he's an old man when he got out, he said cars all over the place. It was blowing his mind. He said the world's just moving so much faster than from what I remember. And like I said, with Winter, her going to prison, she had no time to develop. And something else that I first read The Coldest Winter Ever, I was in middle school. Took it out.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Because I was in middle school.
Yeah, you probably.
Well, when did this book come out? Was I in middle
1999.
school?
The book came out in 1999.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
But
okay.
I think that's probably around the time that a lot of people discovered the book. Now,
How'd you discover it?
I think I took it from my sister's room. My sister had it.
Okay.
Shout out to my sister. She probably wasn't old enough to be reading it either. But the things that stuck out to me initially was I didn't know anybody like Winter Santiago. I didn't know any woman like that. I was living in Newport News, Virginia at the time, but my upbringing up until then, I was living like on military bases, in like middle class neighborhoods. So I wasn't in that type of environment that Winter grew up in. And reading it as an adult, I really get to see, I may have been judging Winter too harshly, because she's 16 and 17 years old in this book. And it's a lot to deal with as a teenager. These people growing up in these environments, they have to pull out these survival mechanisms. They can't be the same way that I was growing up and expect to survive in those environments. They grow up quicker. They have to be more aware of things at an earlier age. But that still doesn't change the fact that Winter was doing some very shady stuff, and there's consequences to that.
When you read this book as in middle school, is that your initial thought? Like, okay, this girl is shady. What was your thought as a middle school child?
I'm kind of having a hard time remembering, because as a middle school child, hormones raging. The thing that stuck out to me the most in the book was, he took two, what is it called? Werther's Originals, and stuck it in her vagina and ate it out, and she enjoyed that. The sex scenes stood out the most to me.
I think that's interesting, and it could just have been my circle, because I didn't know any guys when I was in middle school who were reading this book.
Yeah. Oh, I was a celebrated reader. Like AR points, I was devouring books in middle school. Like they used to give out awards for like the 400-point club, the 300-point club. I was getting those awards.
But it makes me wonder, think back on those days. There possibly, there were some guys reading this book, and I just wasn't aware of it. And so I'm curious now, okay, how are they receiving this versus the young girls?
Yeah. It's definitely like the sex scenes that stood out to a young boy. Like, I say this all the time, like the thong song was like a life-changing moment for me and my friends. The thong song came out one day afternoon after school on BET. we came back the next day, said, yo, did y'all see the thong song video? And then it's like, oh snap, they do have asses. So we started noticing like the girls around school, like, oh, like never even thought of it before like that.
I think that speaks to the innocence of the group that you were around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to read something that I think kind of sums up. I took some notes. What winter is all about. Now, this is a part in the book where things have gone bad for Winter. Her father has been locked up, and maybe we should give an overview for people who haven't read it. Winter Santiago is the daughter of a drug kingpin. Now, she's growing up in Brooklyn. She's growing up in the hood, but her family runs stuff. Her dad's like a big time drug dealer, and they have plenty of money. But like with almost every drug dealing story, the feds come knocking, the police come knocking, and it all goes bad, right? So now that it's all going bad, Winter's out there trying to survive on her own. And she still wants to floss and be like, okay, I'm still on top. So, some trick in that party was going to bankroll all of my fantasies one way or another. Just to keep it real, I had my eyes set on the big catch, GS. GS is a rapper. I knew if I could hook him, my problems would be over. Life would be all Range Rovers, rugs, chips, cheddar, and pleasure. He was wasting his time with Soldier. She was no trophy. And by the way, she's staying with Sister Soldier at this point and plotting on a guy that she knows she's kind of interested in. That's why he picked her up at night. He left her before the sun came up. You can't sport no bitch like her. I am the girl you go to bed with and wake up with. The one you bring the dough home to and leave it on the counter so I can take care of the house. I'm the girl who gets other niggas to envy you, want to be like you, want to kill you. Me. It's all about me. And real niggas know that. Real niggas love drama. Otherwise, life ain't no thrill. If there ain't no drama, what's the point? A live nigga needs a bitch who's so bad that other bitches know when they see her to just lay the fuck down. Now, another thing that I realized as a young guy reading The Coldest Winter Ever, Winter definitely wouldn't have been looking my way at all. Like, I was a square compared to what she was into. And just even that idea, like, a real nigga loves drama. According to her definition, I ain't no real nigga because I don't like drama. I like a peaceful life. What do you think about that passage that I just read?
What stands out to me is for the women, young girls who were growing up like Winter, Sister Soldier was putting these girls on game. There's a lot of game to gain from this book. And I think that's some of the things that some of the young women that I was around, we were receiving. I grew up in Macon, Georgia at that time. This is when I read that book.
What side of Macon? Let them know. Let them know, girl.
Stop being silly.
Let them know. What side of Macon? West side?
So anyways, I can remember learning about The Coldest Winter Ever on the bus. And I learned about The Coldest Winter Ever around the same time that I learned about Zane.
Dang, I forgot about the Zane novels, yeah.
And so it was a thing where we all had to share the book. Like, okay, I'm going to take the book home today. And then, that friend will bring it back. And then I'll take it home, read it, and we'll bring it back. And it was a beautiful thing.
I want to interrupt you, but you know what that sounds like?
What?
Alright, just to show how old I am, like, DVDs that had porn on them, we were doing the same thing except with like booty talk and all that ass, like West Coast Productions, shout out to them. Like that was like middle of high school. Like you get the DVD, you let your homeboy borrow it, but keep going.
We definitely didn't have West Coast Production or porn DVDs. Maybe they did, but I missed on that.
Yeah.
But even when I hear that right there, I think Winter is putting women, young girls on game. And you think about people, Winter grew up in the projects. You have all these people on top of each other, all fighting for pennies essentially.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to You have to learn how to scheme and scam if you want to get ahead. And that's what happens when everybody ends up stepping on each other to try to get ahead.
It's a bad environment. Something that I learned maybe like a couple of years ago, but they call it a housing project for a reason. It's a big science experiment. It's a project. They wanted to see what happens if we stack all these people on top of each other, take away the resources and leave them in poverty, and stick drugs into the neighborhood. And this is what you get. Like in our natural environment, living in an ideal setting, this is not how we would be behaving.
Right.
And I know people have to survive, but you can't get around the consequences of what you're doing. Yeah, you can sell drugs and make money. Yeah, you can mess with these drug dealers who have money, but it's some things that come along with that, and you can't get around that. And I appreciate Sister Soldier for showing both sides of that.
I think to live in poverty, especially to the extremes that I've seen, it's one thing to read it in a book, and then it's another thing to actually experience it. And for the people who are experiencing that, they are in a desperate situation.
Yeah.
And so I understand it from that perspective. Even, and I'm just relating this to reality, how we have been trained in the hood as Black women to look at men, the type of men that we go after. We're technically going after the best option for a man that's in our environment. Okay, if I'm in the hood and I know there's a chance that if I walk out the door, somebody might try to rob me, just all type of violence and aggression. If I'm in a neighborhood like that, would it not make sense for me as a woman to go and seek out a mate who is the top dog at all of those things? He shows me that he has the ability to come across as aggressive. I know that he's a fighter. I know that he's going to be a hustler. That is actually, vetting and choosing a proper mate for your environment. But it's not until a woman is put into what we're now hearing about, the soft life environment, that you can choose a mate that has more respectful qualities and I guess is living a safer life based on societal norms. But if I'm in the hood and that's where I'm living in the projects, no, it doesn't make sense for me to date what you call a square. I'm actually putting a target on my back.
But you know what? That's the conundrum of being in that environment, because while you may date the guy that you feel can protect you, you're not realizing that he has things that's coming towards him as well. It's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Thinking about how many women have been shot up riding around with their boyfriend, he got enemies. Car gets shot up, she's in there. Or think about the woman who get caught up because you riding around, you get conspiracy charges because he's transporting drugs in the vehicle. It's a messed up environment, and I see how you're in between a rock and a hard place. Now they say you always have a choice, but sometimes those choices are hard to see and even harder to pick between, because it's like, man, I can see these consequences, but I can't see the long-term consequences. Like, I don't see how these chess pieces move, because like even in this story, Winter's family was on top for a few years, and then look what happens. Her father goes to jail for life. Her mother gets shot in the face doing a run with her father. She goes crazy, turns into a crackhead. The family is split up. The two girls are put into some foster care. Portia. Now, I never read any of the other Sister Soldier stories that talks about Portia, but she obviously went through some things as well. And that's the part that's infuriating to me, because we're being set up to fail with these environments that they put us in, and we're just doing the best that we can. So one of the things that I learned rereading as an adult is not being so judgmental, being so hard on the choices that Winter and her friend group are making. But there's still some shady stuff that happens. Like, Winter is not an ideal woman. She's very selfish. She's very materialistic, but she's also smart.
To you as an adult, she's not an ideal woman. The title that I gave Winter, I think Winter is the hood princess.
Okay.
Winter is an example of think about, you're in middle school, she's the it girl.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. We heard Winter talk about her beauty. We heard her talk about her fashion. We saw how all the men wanted her.
Yeah.
That's what you were seeing as a child. And I speak to that because, if I'm understanding correctly, a lot of the core audience discovered this book as a preteen or a teenager, middle school, high school.
In the materialism, that's something else that stuck out to me rereading it, is that, okay, money's tight, but I still have to put on the front, or like I still have money, so her money's low, and so she's, still spending it on stuff that I don't consider to be necessary.
We were just talking about that the other day. That's what you do in the hood. Drug dealers, they get these flashy vehicles. They got to get the large rims. They wear these chains. All of this stuff that essentially brings attention to you, and probably, is the main key to your downfall. But it's the programming. People who have gone without for so long, when they finally get something, they have to put it on them. I got to show everybody. I have to wear these labels. I have to have this designer bag. And at the end of the day, when I turn the key and open the door, I'm in the project. So it's a disconnect there.
So I understand that when you grow up with the lack, not having, but Winter grew up always having. I think there's a lot to be said about how her parents set her up for failure too. They made sure she was extremely materialistic, because you want your kids to have like the finer things in life, but you want them to be well-rounded. Like she's asked, there's a point in the book, after her father is arrested and the empire is busted up, she meets with Midnight and she wants to go with Midnight. Well, take me with you. Midnight is like her fantasy. That's the guy she really wants to be with. But Midnight's like, I'm not taking no silly woman with me, because a woman like you is going to be my downfall. A lot of women with that mentality, that's how guys get caught up. So he asked her, so what are you into? Like, what do you read? She didn't have answers for that. I think Midnight is another one of those characters, like, he made different choices. He came up in a rough environment as well, but he chose to do some things differently. He had to learn. So it comes down to choice.
I don't want to jump away from Winter's character. You're saying that Winter grew up always having.
Yeah.
But if we hear kind of the backstory of her father from Bullet, her father was not, he didn't come from money.
Yeah.
So he had to work his way up and build his name in the community. And so it's his trauma that he passes on to his daughter. If you remember, the mother said when she was born, he put, was it some type of bracelet on her wrist that didn't even fit? Or it was a ring.
Yeah.
We see that over and over. The parents are the ones that program the children based on their own traumas.
Yeah.
And so that's what we see getting passed down. And so that's what, what's her name, Winter is holding on to. She has to represent herself in a certain way based on what her parents taught her.
Yeah.
Her mom told her, this is a bad bitch. This is what bad bitches do.
Bow down. Yeah. That's a point. I don't know if I said it earlier, but it's like, it's almost like Sister Soldier saw the coming of the city girl. And this is almost like a cautionary tale for the city girl. But, just having some more compassion for the characters in the book. They don't say how old Santiago was when Winter was born, but her mother was 14. 14-year-olds don't know anything. Imagine being 14, you just became a teenager, and now you're trying to raise a child. There's not much that you can impart to that child. There's a part in the back of the book where Sister Soldier does like a breakdown on the different characters. She says something interesting.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, she says something interesting about Winter's mom. Alright. Character analysis. I'm only going to read a little bit of this. Mrs. Santiago is the only character in The Coldest Winter Ever who does not have a name. She is a symbol of incompletion. She represents all the women who stop learning and growing in this life, the ones who turn into beautiful Barbie dolls. You shower most dolls, especially your favorite one, with lots of attention in the beginning. You dress them up in the finest matching doll outfits and accessories. one afternoon you happen to lay her down, then somehow she becomes uninteresting, unimportant, indispensable. Um, that's interesting that she put that much thought into, because I didn't even think about it. We never learned what her first name is. It's just Winter's mom, and that's a sad tale what she turns into. Um, I also wrote about like the relationship that she has with her father. Um, Now I'm not a girl, so maybe this isn't weird, but she refers to her father as sexy a couple of times in the book. She talks about like his eyes being sexy. She said, "I know Pops is laying it down in the bedroom," and that's something I ain't never thought about with my parents. Like, what's going on in the bedroom with them?
Yeah, I think that's intentionally put in there to come across as alarming, because if you notice, when Winter goes to the group home, I think it's the group home, and she's meeting with the counselor, that's one of the things that the counselor is asking her, like, do you have any sexual attraction to your father? And so I think we do see that. And again, that's something that is happening in our black communities in the hood, and it's something that we just kind of push under the rug. It's not discussed as deeply as I think that it should be.
There's an episode in Atlanta where Paperboy is talking. He is like, "Yo, I don't like it when a woman calls me daddy during sex. It make me feel like something wrong happened." And I think about that. Yeah, that is a little weird. Like,
Yeah, you see that in the book also. At some point, Bullet did something for her. He bought her something.
Bullet got her some type of necklace or something, and she said, "Thanks, Daddy," and he's like, "What'd you say?" She said, "Thanks, Bullet." Like, she changed it up. So yeah, that's interesting. Sister Soldier was, pointing out a lot of stuff, and I think it's just the excitement of like the hood drama that people wanted to pay attention to. That, well, I'm not going to think about these deeper lessons. You all right?
Yeah, my knee was starting to hurt.
Oh, okay.
I have to go stretch on my leg. I'm just trying to think about Winter and her father and the relationship and the appreciation that she has for him. She was taught certain things about her father, what to respect. She was taught that from her mother. We do hear, and maybe I think I just started hearing it in Life After Death, where Winter talks about how her mother spoke about her father. And she says she's heard this from, these are her earliest memories, from when her mother was teaching her, potty training her. She was telling her the story of her losing her virginity to her dad. And so she's learning from her mother the things to respect about her father. And so I think if you come up in an environment like that, yeah, those are going to be maybe normal thoughts for you. But say you're coming up in an environment, for example, you did say you're not female, but what if your mom was saying stuff to you like, oh, your dad has sexy eyes, and replaying what it was like her having sex with him for the first time.
I'd have been grossed out.
As somebody who's like, 5 years old or younger.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So
all types of trauma that just happens. And something else that Soldier says at the back of this book, she's talking about her upbringing. Like, I think she left that type of environment and they moved in with her grandmother when she was like 9 or something.
Sister Soldier?
Sister Soldier, yeah. So she only dealt with that for a certain amount of time. But she said, the suburbs or those quote unquote middle class areas, they have their own traumas and stuff that they're dealing with. And it's, it's just a different type of environment. Everybody's out here trying to make it the best way that they can. And these different environments are going to come with different challenges.
Yeah, my overall thing is I understand why Life After Death wasn't received as the Coldest Winter Ever, because it wasn't that book. It was that character's story, but it wasn't written in the same way. We didn't get those. It was a harder lesson for us, especially for us young women who discovered this book as a teenager. we're still playing out our role
And look
here.
at the examples that we get as this is what women are supposed to be like the city girl era.
We're still playing out our role here. We haven't yet transitioned into the afterlife. And so now you're trying to scare the shit out of me. You telling me all the aborted babies that I'm probably right now making an appointment to go to the abortion clinic. You telling me that I'm going to have to see them one day. Yeah, that's disturbing to my spirit.
Now that's something that stuck out in both those books. And in the first one, Winter has to go and get an abortion. She doesn't have to, but she decides to go and get an abortion because she's not sure who the father is, and she's with a new guy who's financing her life. There's a young woman in there saying, "Oh no, it's like 1, 2, 3. It's easy, it's quick." You know, she said, "I don't like taking the pill; it makes me sick. I don't like creams, condoms. You can't feel anything." But she said, "I only get pregnant like once a year." So like for her, that chick, you know, she just goes. She has like a yearly appointment. And
She
I
said
really
she got
think,
an abortion credit card.
yeah, Medicaid. And I know that's what made
Mackie,
people.
sit down.
It's that voice of authority towards the cats. I know that was a point of contention because in Life After Death, Winter is confronted with her 2 children, and she doesn't know it's her 2 children. Like the abortion that she had, it was actually 2. What that chick say? Damn, double homicide. She had twins in there. And, you know, the children, you know, they forgive their mothers, but they're trying to get them to change their ways. And one of the things that stuck out to me, like when they were confronted with their aborted babies, the woman was like, "Well, where the niggas at who got us pregnant? How come they not here and having to face these consequences?" And they were like, "Well, nah, they over there on the other side learning their lesson." Yeah, man, it's heavy, it's deep. Getting that light shined on you, that could be, well, I'm not ready to view myself like this yet. Like, nah, I don't enjoy this book. But a lot of the same things that was happening in The Coldest Winter Ever was happening in Life After Death. She found the club, she found the nigga who had money down in hell, and that's who she was rocking with.
I thought about something also. This book here seems like it kind of turns into a science fiction novel. You have urban literature. This is easy to understand. Yeah. I can walk outside and see everything that Winter's talking about. And now you bring me into some type of science fiction shit, and what? This is hard for me to understand. Now there's all these religious tones. We know black people are afraid. You know, we is it
superstitious? Yeah.
Yeah, superstitious. We have all these do's and don'ts, and you're telling me she's getting ready to lay down with the devil or his son? She
gets smashed by both of them. Oh, and that's something else that stuck out to me in the review. The lady was like, "Yo, it's obvious that Sister Soldier hates women." And in my mind, I was like, "Yo, how are you getting that she hates women?" I think Sister Soldier is a big advocate of women, and her being a woman, she knows that their potential is so much higher than what we're being led to believe, than the lifestyle that we're living.
You know, I'm one of those people, I believe in shooting straight and calling it what it is. In 2024, and I want to say men have allowed women to get this way. Y'all do have a responsibility on this as well. But we are in a place where if you hold women accountable, you are not for women.
Yeah. Oh, you hate chicks, yeah.
And so that's what we see in this book. This is a book of accountability.
And yeah, that
And it's sad that we're that simple.
All right, so I see how we got to that point. All right, so in the Civil Rights Movement, welcome back. What scared the American government was them seeing what black men and black women were able to accomplish while we were working together. So their next mission became, we have to separate these two people. So you get the men out of the homes, you take away the type of jobs that they can work to where they can provide. You give welfare to the woman and saying you can't receive this welfare if you have a man present. And then you have the feminist movement who coming out of patriarchy, and they're like, yo, the plight of the white woman is the same as the plight of the black woman. Come join our movement. So it starts to build this animosity between the two genders. And, that's just been growing and exploding exponentially ever since. So they don't want to see a black man sitting with his black woman and having these type of conversations. So yeah, that whole accountability thing, it comes across, oh, you're a woman hater. So you got to know who you're talking to and how to talk to them. Because I think about poor Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels had a volunteer call-in show. Kevin Samuels never said, hey, let me call this woman up and tell her what I think about her life. They all volunteered to call in and asked him what he thought. He said what he thought, and, he wasn't kind all the time. He didn't have like a soft-handed approach, but women celebrated when this man died. Like it was like a celebration. This nigga is gone. And that's so sad. And one of the things that men have been taught to do is like, well, I don't want to just sit here and argue with my woman and have all this yelling and stuff, so I'm just going to, step away from it. So when we see somebody who's going to like stand there and talk to y'all and give like that, that straightforward advice and use a heavy hand while doing it, he gets cheered on, but it's like, yeah, I don't know if I want those problems. So I'll talk to the women within my circle that I'm close to. I can tell them certain things, but like coming across trying to tell women as a whole something, that's a different kind of headache. And I know, because look how they're treating Sister Soldier, and she's a woman. This lady said, oh, Sister Soldier obviously hates women. What?
I think it's about delivery and tone. As we know, women are sensitive. We were just talking about the other day at Orange Crust when the Hebrew Israelites.
It stinks. It stinks. It stinks. Yeah. Shout out to the Hebrew Israelites. Them niggas is funny.
So basically, they're at Orange Crush.
Crush.
What did I say?
Crash or something.
Well, baby, I went to Orange Crush a few times. I think I know the name.
All right, we'll watch it. We'll see it on the playback. But what happened?
Yeah, Orange Crush. And of course, it's girls out there and they're twerking. Well, this is from the video that I can see on TikTok. It's a girl twerking and these guys are surrounded around her. And basically, they're trying to shame her. And they're trying to shame her through chanting, "It stink. It stink." What else were they saying?
We smell it. We smell it. We smell it.
And so the girl is still twerking. Her friends are kind of like laughing and cheering her along. And that's all you see from the clip. And so Rod and I were having a conversation like, is that the approach that you need to have with women? Do you need to like shame them or embarrass them? And, I'll let you share what your perspective is or how you think that they should have handled that situation.
Well, the Hebrew Israelites, that's how they would handle that situation. Like, they dress up and stand on the corner and read Bible verses and yell at white folks. Now, what I said was the Nation of Islam, if there was a group of those men out there, the Fruit of Islam, I know they would have approached that a lot differently. Our women are precious, so there has to be a way to correct them and still remind them that, okay, you are precious and I care about you. Sometimes embarrassment does work. But I don't know if you get the best result out of that. Like, she got embarrassed by those guys, so she may just have a growing resentment in her heart that just continues to increase as time goes on because of what happened. Versus if you had some brothers from the Nation of Islam out there, they would approach that a lot differently.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's difficult to decide, okay, which approach do I need to take? Would you recommend Sister Soldier's 2 books to your friends or to a young person to read it? And if you do recommend it, what would you tell them going into life after death?
I guess it depends on why I'm recommending it. If I'm recommending the book for a good read, yeah. If I am recommending The Coldest Winter Ever because I'm trying to steer a young girl in a correct direction, I don't know if this is the book that does that. I think the mark gets missed for me personally, if that's the goal. Like we said, this was supposed to be what type of book do we say?
Cautionary tale.
Yeah, ideally, the Coldest Winter Ever is a cautionary tale, and from my group of friends, that wasn't what we were receiving. That wasn't what I received from reading the Coldest Winter Ever.
And it's interesting because at the end of the book, she winds up in jail doing 15 years. Maybe because we don't see what her life in jail is like, we don't get enough of that story to where it's like, okay, yeah, this is bad. And then another thing that happens to her, her beauty is like the most important thing to her. She winds up getting like a scar across her face. And even in life after death, like I said, your after death experience is going to vary depending on what you need to learn. So because Winter is so vain, when she went to hell, she couldn't see herself at all until she gets to like a certain point. She can finally view her body again.
I think something else, the way that we've been programmed and trained to always get a happy ending. And so, yeah, we know at the end of this book, Winter gets locked up, but I think we were expecting in the sequel to still get that happy ending, that happily ever after.
She got a happy end at the end of this book.
But many people didn't get to the end of the book.
Yeah.
From the reviews that we saw, they read maybe the first few chapters, left a bad review online, put the book away, shamed Sister Soldier. And so, yeah.
And all right, so that's something else. Mentally, they try to keep us dumbed down. But after a certain point, we're going to have to grow up. You're going to have to advance yourself mentally. You can't stay on this same level and expect not to be taken advantage of. You're just not going to understand things that are going on. You have to strive for wisdom and for knowledge. This is Ron's Library and Ideas, so I like to recommend books. Excuse me. So one of the best books that I found early on in my journey is this, it's called Seth Speaks, The Internal Validity of the Soul. And that's where I first learned about how your afterlife journey, it varies depending on what you need to learn. Like somebody who kills themselves, they're not going to have the same experience as somebody who dies peacefully in their bed. But it's all for the betterment of you. Like your ultimate goal, or the place you will ultimately wind up, is back in that oneness with God, with the all. But every soul has this journey trying to get back there. You have lifetimes to do it. And depending on the choices that you get to make with your free will, that's going to determine what happens to you while you're down here. Okay, so kind of wrapping up, unless we want to keep going. This is a cautionary tale of the consequences of choices. And then you can be born into family where you get exposed to things and the choices that are presented to you seem like they're limited. But at some point in all of these journeys, there's a helping hand that's being reached out somewhere. I feel like that's maybe true for every life, but we just have to be able to recognize it when that helping hand comes. Sister Soldier shows that Winter had a helping hand extended to her a few times in this story, but she didn't want to follow through with it. She made, what I say is the wrong choice, but it's the choice that she needed to make to get her to the point that she needed to be to.
I wish I had like the positive outlook that you have on it. And it's my life experiences that kind of, I guess, give me a jaded view. But I think at the end of the day, the hood is going to be the hood. And we're going to have people who have to come up in the hood and they have to survive.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that you're going to need to survive.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to give those survival skills to young women. So if you are reading The Coldest Winter Ever, I think that's what you can pick up. You can pick up some survival skills, and then you can also see what happens just based on some of the decisions that she chooses to make. So that's my complete takeaway, man. You giving your hands, you play them how you play them, you better play them well. And so the only way that you can make sure you play them well, if you are in a certain environment, is to make sure that you're well equipped to survive in that environment. It's about survival.
And to me, the best way to survive is be as smart as you can. Learn as much as you can. Because the more information that you have, you're going to see more options available to you.